I saw it. As soon as I saw the election, I didn't run back last night. I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Look at all this work that's going on. This is not going to be nice. But I think what's happening is that you're what's going to happen when I go forward. I think you've got a good group of councils that want to do the right thing. Well, I'm surprised about that. Well, you know what? His best answer to one of the councils was, guy was kind of going after him about, the fire and the prisons, blah. What was your rationale behind it? The rationale wasn't those three, it was those four. It was the 3,000 other employees. But the guy just kind of looked and just shut right up. Yeah, good change, yeah. Well, of course,
Test check 1 2 3 4 5 6. Check 1 2 3 4 5 6. There will be another full-blown housekeeping notes and all that sort of fun stuff happening shortly. I'm just doing a specific test for someone streaming in the audience. Test 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Check 1 2 3 4 5 6. Check 1 2. Yeah, I'm just testing. There's a fellow streaming in the audience, so I'm just testing to make sure. Yeah, there will be the housekeeping notes haven't happened yet before the actual show starts. That'll happen. Yeah. It's hey, you get what you paid for. 5 stars. Check 1 2 3. Doc. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Will I go to 20? No. I will start over. Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Checking 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you.
But I said to them, I said, look, my job is nice and that. Some of that wasn't going on in the last month. There, yeah, well, a big change over. Only one guy got defeated, the rest of all retired. They're retired, and the ward court counselor who left the country to reach new ward court, a new ward court, Gary Bruno, a former counselor. Hi. What's the deal? How you doing? Oh, okay. What's your boss? Good. So far. Yep, I got the cell phone on and all that. The staff was really appreciative. They couldn't believe I did it. Yeah, like even after our last day was our very first meeting. And I worked with a lot of them in the past, so I feel that's really good. I always respect the staff too. That's why I don't give them a lot of things back to my own board. Because that's true. I'll help you, you help me. You know, so when I call to an issue, we can fix right away. So, yes, 6 to no, quite honestly. In the next 5 years, probably. I know it's hard to well, you never see, well, you know, you can't why it's one issue right now. I think Ford is going to attack it. Use that slowly roll it out. This allows at least one more. We're not going to see it. It's not going to be 3,000 miles. And even that, Catharines is probably more than or it's a company that doesn't mean they can fix it. They can fix the camel. But you know, it is what it is. I think it was just drive with them. Grow up. What's his jacket? Well, I think Jack Daniels, I think we want to reach foundation now as a novel. When I grew up in Fort Boulder, we had a section at Ward 4. Those days, each ward in the town used to say whether they want liquor or not. Even though it had the breed house tax, it had another tax, no new licensees put on it. Technically dry. But because those two taverns were older than the lines, nothing new put over it. So we had a plebiscite in our ward in about, I don't know, it was probably the late 70s. And they voted to now allow us. And I saw you stuff, and so we're going to zap fast, and I showed up to vote. That's how my council accepted it, basically. She came across last night, he was 6 months old. And the councilor was on the bottom of the way. He was empty at the beginning, but after all the information came out from our public consultation, he's in Australia, he can't happen to send it to me. And he came back and said, look, I know this doesn't go anywhere, but yes. So really, well, we did three. We did an online telephone survey. We had 6 or so hundred calls. We did 400. Really good. Of that, 56% was in favor. The online survey was just under 1,500. 76% in favor. The open house, which I never trust open house because the special interest group that really wants to yay or nay it will show up on mass. And it was like, there's still question staff, but I remember the dots on the wall that see it. It was like 63 to 64. That's not really what I got in the public. However, there were 2 groups that were there. The yes side and the no side. Very few people were there that really weren't sure. But overall, the majority of the festival, I haven't heard it before. Yeah, more than I thought it was. It really did. But more than I thought it was. These ones were the ones who walked up and smell away. Oh yeah, you're not gonna know the guy came up his garage. It just reeked like hot. Farmers, but you gotta remember too, is what we bought it. But, the good arguments that came out last night was the safety issue. Another thing, I grew up in the 70s, thought there and all that, but I was never worried that today, that's the issue. A couple of councils cut up and said, look, I got kids and I got grandkids. They decided they like to smoke marijuana. I want to make sure that my clients and retail outlet that it's not. So that kind of overall. And once everything gets up and going, then they bring the price down to a price. They will drive it. So I was just talking to a friend who showed 2 years of that, and I couldn't get the on it. Went and spoke about the pod which was down. Where were you last night? Yeah, they were unanimous. Really sensitive. Vote against? Here, although he said I'm not against him, I just want to do more research. But we don't know that. Well, and it's not going to be a couple years before we get so, and by then, we'll celebrate. So if you look at when prohibition was brought in, behind liquor laws and a lot of other places, but the laws have changed, especially in the last 25 years, in the liquor laws. So marijuana was moved to high school, it changed the regulations. So, we got a lady waiting today, and she was all over us about it. And all her arguments, like, whether we have retail or not, arguments are stuck with you. And I wrote her back and said, Harry's prep, and then buddies Northern, cut him off and all this stuff. Yeah. I interrupted her, I said, oh. So anyways, so he spoke, and I interrupted her, so we got 2 minutes left. So I gave him a couple bucks. I gave him 15 bucks. I tried to cut him out, so now we're going to rush it.
So what time is this?
That's policy. That's just the way that it's tough. You don't come in. You try to come in. Or no, you have 10 minutes. So that nobody asks any questions. Walk in and go, no questions. That's the place. But Harry's, he did put forward, which I pulled out of we got time discussing staff, what have they done so far as dealing with Dan was really answer. Well, kind of asked me, I was asking, Scott would know what he's, I know what he's asking. Get it? Scott popped up and went through all this stuff. Staff have looked at. Harry said, yeah. Let's do this. Do this first and go back. Give that as direction to staff and back. And that's it. Set up a subcommittee. Then Donna was all pissed off at me because I said, no, the council who wants to speak to this issue. Because she was the first thing that I was to say. Blah, 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 blah. And I went to Nancy first because I really wanted to vote on it. But Donna got all pissed off. She was going to bring up a negative motion, but she can't. You got to read the motion and the report. So she was all mad at me. So she's going after staff about it. She can't do that. So I grabbed her after. I said, Donna, I apologize. I should have gone to the person. I said, but you realize have to mean the motion that staff is putting, that's our direction. I said, then you would have had to read that in order to become a minute. So I would have done that way anyway. Yeah. I said, really, it's irrelevant unless the direction on that report is, unless the direction is to put it in council's hands for direction. Yeah, which is very rare. Very rare. Chris, you're back in the house. You got to call them in. That still get your ass in shape. Yet nobody wants to talk about it. I put that up there. Yeah, so my next councilman will bring it up. No matter what political stripe there is, it's a great news for us. Some of the born and raised there through the war. But it's funny, reading about him in hockey, I don't remember David even being a decent hockey player. But he's in Oxford, England, so anybody can play with that. Justin for a reason, just in time. So, I just heard Chris, I had a laugh. That's our shit, kid. I say to Chris, I had to laugh many times. After the last one, I don't remember David being very good hockey player. time in order to get back to 10 up to 12, 13. We only went to it in January. Yeah. It would have been a positive. It was in my history class. It was grade, it would have been grade 11 history. I remember him being on football. Or junior. Grade 10 now. I know who was there for this one. I thought you graduated in 1980. So we have done it for grade 13. I'm sure I graduated.
That is live.
Mic runners, can I get all the mic runners over to the AV table? Thank you.
I texted my kid asking for a joke for it.
He'll go there. Hello, everyone. First off, thank you for coming. Thank you for waiting a very long time. I know it was a lot, but we really appreciate it. As you can see, it takes a lot to get this many people in this space safely and well done. So thank you for waiting. Super happy you're here. I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown on how this all works so you're not tiring out your arm the entire time, so you can throw it up at the appropriate time and so you can get your question answered. So the Prime Minister is coming. He will be in this area right here, and he himself will be choosing audience members, whoever has their hand up, at random. He's going to start in this-ish section, and he will work clockwise. So if you notice he's in this section and you're way over here, save your arm strength. You're going to need it for later when he gets over here. He will personally point you out. So if you do get chosen, say, for example, gentleman in the awesome bow tie, if you can pop up, a mic runner will come to you. So mic runners, please put your arms up. You'll see they have jerseys. They will get to you as quickly as possible. Grab the mic, and it's all you. If you are, say, in the middle of a very wide row, which I know are some spots, please help a buddy out. Pass the microphone along to that individual. Okay, now on to how to talk into a microphone. Seems self-explanatory? It's not. So you will notice I have it rested on my chin here. It's kind of the perfect spot. You can hear people very clearly. They're not quiet. They're not too loud. If you are a hand talker, It stabilizes you. If you do use the mic far away from you, you can't hear you. So this is what happens. No one in the back can hear me. Only people in the front row heard that. Also, don't hold it too close, because then it kind of sounds like a really intense rock concert, which is kind of cool, but we can't make out what you're saying. We're going to get started pretty shortly. I do want to say some housekeeping things. You will see some really awesome individuals in super bright hoodies. There's some over there by that fire exit. There's some over there. We got a few over there. These people are to help in any sort of emergency medical situation. Obviously, if that happens, again, be a buddy, get out of the way, let them do their job. If emergency response needs to help us from outside, they will be entering through those doors over there where you came in, number 1 and number 2. So again, please clear the way, let these people do their job and help out the individual who needs some help. We're going to start pretty shortly, as I just said, so sit tight and save your awesome questions for when the Prime Minister shows up. Thanks, guys.
Across the way. Prime Minister teacher again. She's under the, just to the left of under the B in the middle. Got a black hat, black hoodie on. Just say, look at the they told them, we'll give you a warning, and that's it.
Welcome, everyone. It's a very special evening, a very special day, a very special time. It's the town hall with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It's outstanding to see so many individuals from across the entire university community and across the entire Niagara region and Ontario here with us tonight. Tonight, we acknowledge that we are rooted here in Niagara. We have outstanding attractions in the region, outstanding people, talented, skilled individuals, competitive industry, great world-class attraction. We're home to the grape and wine industry, world-renowned. We're home as well to competitive industries such as the manufacturing sector. Combined with the quality of life in this region, this is a place to study, to live, to grow, to prosper. Come and visit us here in Niagara. I'd also like to make mention that across the university community, we have individuals that engage in meaningful, thoughtful, respectful dialogue. And it's our opportunity to showcase the university and to showcase the region, not only to Canada, but indeed to the world. Our contributions as a university to prosperity, to competitiveness, to productivity, is what brings the opportunities to all Canadians. It is what makes Canada such an outstanding country for all of us to enjoy. And tonight's dialogue, the issues, the possibilities that will be talked about tonight, is about the possibilities for all Canadians. So we are just so pleased to have the Prime Minister here tonight, today with us. We're so pleased to have each and every one of you here with us at Brock University. We're pleased to be hosting tonight's event, and we're pleased to have you be a part of the university. I am Gervin Farron, Brock University's president, and thank you so much for being here. Merci. At this time, I have the great privilege of introducing an amazing individual for Niagara, and it's Chris Biddle. He's the Member of Parliament and a great friend of the university and a great supporter of the region. Chris?
Thank you, Gervin. Thank you so much. Wow, Niagara. It's great to see you all here. Though with the Prime Minister, I thought a few more people could show up, but I think we did okay. I want to first of all say thank you so much. I went out and met with some people out in the line. It was a little bit chilly. Some people were shivering, and I said, don't worry about the shivering. That is a natural part of being cold. Be worried if the shivering stops. That's your body shutting down. So if it happened to any of you, kudos for still being here. Thank you so much. It's incredible that you are here tonight, and we thank you for waiting in line for this opportunity to have a political discussion here in St. Catharines, here in Niagara. A lot of people think that political discourse has changed around the world, but it really is the same. And we're here tonight to have a discussion with the leader of our country, with the Prime Minister of Canada. And as we look around the world, we don't see a lot of world leaders taking that opportunity. So I tip my hat to the Prime Minister, and I thank all of you for being here and taking part in that discussion. And finally, I'd like to thank Brock University for being here, for being our host tonight. This was quite a feat to put this all together and make sure that you're all here and that it's going to run smoothly. And it also shows the power of a university and the power of Brock University within our community, that it can be a center for us to come together, a center to share ideas, and a center for discussion. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for being here. And I promise you there'll only be one more speaker before the person you really want to hear from. So I'd like to introduce my friend, the Member of Parliament for Niagara Centre, Vance Badaway.
Well, good evening, everyone. How we all doing? We all ready for the big guy? Well, I too, as Chris stated, want to thank, with all due sincerity, Brock University, a world-renowned institution, education, research, development, science, and all the good new things coming out of the school. Hats off to Gervin, his team, his executive team, who will be sitting here in the front row. But most importantly, thanks to the students, who I see many of you out here, that are really putting Brock on the national, on the international map. And I thank you for that. For all of you who have come out tonight to engage with the Prime Minister, I thank you as well. I give true appreciation to each and every one of you that truly cares. That truly cares to take the time out of your busy schedules to come out and express, whether it be by question or by opinion, to the Prime Minister. Not all may be positive, some may be negative, but that's why the Prime Minister is here, is to hear and to listen. And finally, I want to say to him, to the Prime Minister of Canada, thank you for taking time out of his busy schedule to come here to Niagara, to not only work with Chris and I on a regular basis to champion the issues of Niagara, and of course give the attention that Niagara deserves and has been long awaiting. Thanking him for that, but also thanking him to engage each and every one of you to take your message back to Ottawa, to the nation's capital, and to really continue to make a difference for each and every one of you here in this great nation. So it's my privilege, it's my honor to introduce, to welcome an individual that truly does care, an individual that's here to listen and once again have a great dialogue with you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, our national leader, the member from Papineau, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau. Good to see you.
Great to see you, my friend.
All yours. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Vance. Thank you, Chris, for your kind welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is, thank you, all of you, for your welcome. Thank you for coming out. This, for me, is one of my favorite times of the year. January is when we get out across the country, and I get to actually have an opportunity to hear directly from people who come out, want to engage in what is fundamentally an exercise in democracy. It's an opportunity for people to ask direct questions of the Prime Minister, to share your concerns, share issues that you might have on your mind, questions about the future, questions for me about how I deal with challenges, or how we are going to step up and be successful in the future. The opportunity for me as a politician to hear directly from you is extraordinarily valuable. But this isn't something that I've just done since I became Prime Minister. It's something I've been doing for years. I was doing it as leader of the Liberal Party. I was doing it even before that. Indeed, I was remembering that I'd come through and we'd promised to do a town hall like this. It would have been significantly smaller here at Brock one year when it was canceled because of a snowstorm. So I'm glad to be here on a beautiful night, although back then I had a keen young volunteer driving me around by the name of Chris Biddle. It's great to be back here at Brock, great to be taking your questions. Now, as was highlighted, we're going to hear a range of views and perspectives tonight, and that's really important. It's important for me to be able to hear the breadth of opinion and perspectives that there are across the country, but it's also important for Canadians to know that there are folks who are Canadian alongside you who have very different opinions from you. And one of the challenges of democracy is we seem to be more and more in a space where people are talking very loudly and not necessarily listening to each other. And we know if we want to be a society that is diverse and successful because of its diversity, we need to listen to each other. We need to learn from others' perspectives. We need to understand where they're coming from, even if we disagree with them. And only from a place of actually hearing each other and working forward together are we going to be able to continue to make Canada the very best country in the world. So I thank you all for coming out here tonight. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. So I'm just going to go around the room, taking questions at random. I know I won't be able to take everyone's question, but I'm going to take as many as I can, and hopefully we'll all come out of this a little more informed about our democracy and the ways we're trying to bring this country. So let's start with the section over here. You, sir, in the yellow.
Am I holding this right? Oh. Hello, Prime Minister. Welcome to St. Catharines. This is my hometown, and this is the university I graduated from a long time ago. On a quick personal note, when your father was campaigning in '79, this was his last campaign stop. And as luck would have it, I was the second or third last person to shake his hand as he was leaving after that event, and I was always quite happy about that.
Yeah, but you'll understand he lost that election, so I'm not going to shake your hand tonight, right? The '79 election was a tough one for him. Sorry, I think we're going to correct the record here.
I wasn't going to ask that, but it was when he won the led into his last.
It was the 1980 election.
The one he won.
The one he won. That was a good one. There we go. I'm glad you're here tonight. Then, thank you.
That was good. Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to ask a question regarding your policies regarding the environment. I follow you on Twitter as the page will be called Marathon of Light. This shirt is symbolic of that. And it's really about the transition between old world energies to sustainable energies. And you know the drill there. Basically, I just wanted to give you an open question. How is Canada going to approach this transition? And as I'm sure you've been briefed and well informed of various countries and regions and areas and companies that are transforming from, like we like to say, green is the new black. We're going from oil to sustainable. What are we doing about it in Canada?
Thank you very much for your question. And it's an extremely important one because it's a question that impacts on all of our futures. We know that the world is going through a transformation to try and reduce its dependency on fossil fuels and create new ways of powering our cities, our businesses, our economies, our homes in ways that are going to be able to continue and preserve the environment while creating good jobs into the future. We're in a period where we're figuring out what those next steps are, and it's really important that we be thoughtful about how we do that. Now, it's not a problem that any one country can solve on its own. That's why international community came together to make commitments around the Paris Agreement that Canada very much signed on to. Canada was part of pushing for that agreement because we just had an election and came in with a very positive momentum that helped make sure that agreement is signed. And we are very much on track to achieving our Paris commitment targets to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Now, our capacity to do that, however, needs to be focused on making the changes that we need to make, but also making sure that every step of the way, regular people are supported. That means making sure there are good jobs along the way, making sure that if there are extra challenges or costs or put a price on pollution, for example, like we have, that we are supporting ordinary families and ordinary people through this transition. And that's exactly what we've been focused on. We've made sure that we recognize that we have a problem called climate change, which is real. Let's start with that one. Climate change is real. And we have to do something about it. The reason it's a problem is because it's been free to pollute into our atmosphere for a very long time. So we know that if we put a price on that pollution, we will have less pollution. But the way we're moving forward in putting a price on pollution is making sure that we're supporting ordinary families through that transition, including with things like making sure that agricultural fuels are exempt, making sure that there's a rural top-up on what we're doing when we're bringing in a direct price on pollution, to make sure that affordability for ordinary Canadians is at the heart of how we move forward, because we know that's what we have to do. People are worried about their kids' future, they're worried about their own future, they're worried about their retirement, they're worried about their jobs. They need to know that we can protect the environment while supporting families and moving in the right direction. And that's exactly what we're doing. So as we move forward, we're investing massively in renewable energies. We're investing in technologies and encouraging and inciting companies and innovators to develop those next technologies that are going to be cleaner and greener. We're encouraging science and research at great institutions like Brock University to make sure that we are finding out those next steps of how we're going to best protect the planet. We're looking clear-eyed into the fact that the world is moving in that direction, and Canada should be part of leading the way and shaping that future, because then we will be able to draw the benefits of it. And anyone who points out that Canada isn't polluting nearly as much as China or India or other things, and therefore we should do nothing, is not understanding the nature of Canadians, that we are always willing to step up to solve problems and benefit from sharing those solutions with the world. That's exactly what we're going to do, because it comes down to understanding that we need our kids to live in a better future. We need to create good jobs for them. We need to make sure that our nature, that our environment continues to be protected so it can support us and everything we do on this planet. That is why I am so committed to fighting climate change and making sure that Canadians are better off because we're doing it. Thank you very much. Hey, another question from this section. Yes, you in pink. Yes.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Trudeau. Nice to meet you. I'm Jennifer Brenz, and I'm a teacher at Sir Winston Secondary School. That's a local high school here. My one question for you is just some advice on how we can prevent the rise of right-wing xenophobic populism that we see in parts of Europe and our neighbors to the south.
I think one of the things we're seeing is that there are a lot of people worried about a whole bunch of different things. There's always been people worried about the future, about their jobs, about their communities, about new neighbors showing up. There's always been anxiety. One of the things that we've seen recently, though, is social media and means of mass communication have had an ability to aggregate and in some ways empower voices that ordinarily would have been a little more on their own. And instead, they get to connect and amplify each other, and it suddenly becomes and seems like they have a lot more volume and a lot more presence than they actually do. One of the things that I've constantly reassured by and inspired by are the conversations I have with Canadians right across the country who get it, who understand that having a neighbor from a different part of the country or a different part of the world, understanding that our kids go to some of the best public schools in the world where the full scope of diversity of our country is brought together and given extraordinary opportunities to thrive and survive and succeed. That we have a country that understands that respecting someone else's fundamental rights in no way takes away from your own fundamental rights, and therefore there's room to respect, to learn, to grow together. These are the things that most Canadians get. But at the same time, there are lots of people who are wondering if the promise of progress no longer really holds. That people remember sort of the post-war World War II boom years where everything seemed to be so great and growth was tremendous and the middle class was doing well. And over the past few decades, there's a sense that maybe things have stalled. And people are now worried as they see the global economy taking off. They're worried that maybe the impacts of things like global trade and advances in technology and robotics and AI aren't necessarily going to benefit them. And these are real anxieties. We see uncertainty about the job market and into the future. We see concerns about what kinds of jobs our kids are going to have and how they're going to be able to get the education that they're going to need to be able to do those good jobs in the future. It's totally normal for people to be worried about those kinds of things. And part of a government's responsibility, part of society's responsibility, is to work together to allay those fears. To say, yes, these are challenges we're facing, but these are challenges we can solve together. with things like investing in education, investing in science and research, investing in skills training, investing in infrastructure, things like public transit and housing. That means people are going to be able to afford their places to live and to get to work from there. Investing in the kinds of things that can allay those fears. Unfortunately, as there always are, there are shortcuts that some people are taking in politics that realize that if you amplify those fears, you can actually make short-term gains. If you take people's anxieties and shout them back at them, they can say, yeah, I'm going to vote for you because you understand me. Well, maybe there's an understanding there, but there aren't necessarily solutions. We live in a world where sometimes packaging really simple, easy-sounding solutions can be very compelling. And that's why making sure that we continue to have space for real conversations, making sure that as citizens we demand, plans and visions and answers and accountability from leaders, from politicians about how they're going to solve these challenges, how they're going to focus on bringing people together rather than dividing them apart, is increasingly something we're seeing. In the 2015 election, we made a commitment that we were going to stay positive, not use negative attack ads, and put forward a very ambitious, comprehensive plan for real change that involved investing in our communities, investing in the middle class, investing in our futures. And when the Liberal Party went from a distant third place to forming a government, I sort of said to myself, wow, maybe we proved it once and for all, that positive politics works and nobody's ever going to try divisive, scary politics again. The world went in a bit of a different direction. And we see that it is very compelling for some politicians to look and push easy answers and simplistic solutions that feel right but don't actually pass the smell test and don't actually represent real solutions. So what we need to do, and certainly what I'm trying to make sure we do in this coming year of an election year in Canada, is come together to have real conversations. Make sure there's room for us to disagree on certain issues and explain our reasoning as to why we think we're right and maybe the other party or other person is not on the right path. But to do it in a respectful way that doesn't shut down or shut off people who disagree with you, but instead tries to bring them along. That's the big challenge, and I think that's what we can model. It's certainly what we model in our schools as problem solving, is how we try and bring people together, how we try to be respectful. That's certainly how we should try and engage in democracy. And all of you, by choosing to spend a random weekday evening out here in this exercise in democracy, are demonstrating that you believe in the power of thoughtful, engaged Q&A sessions like this, and quite frankly, I really hope that this year, an election year, more politicians from different parties will embark upon these kinds of open forums where they get to hear unfiltered from Canadians. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Let's go to you, sir, in the back with the white beard. Standing up. Yes. No, in the back with the white beard. Yep.
Thank you very much. I'm Dave Thomas from Fort Erie, and I'm chair of the local Canadian-Cuban Friendship Association of Niagara. And we very much appreciate Canada's foreign policy regarding Cuba and maintaining relations. What's very disturbing to me is Venezuela and Cuba are close allies. They've helped each other. They've just had an election, and Canada chooses not to recognize the new government, but yet we recognize the new president of Brazil, where Brazil locked up the leading candidate and didn't allow him to run in the campaign. So if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I thank you, sir, for your words about the strength of Canada's foreign policy. And I think our perspective on Cuba has always been one of those proof points that Canada does make its own foreign policy determinations. And the American administrations, successive American administrations, were never particularly pleased with Canada's perspective on Cuba. But I think it was a way
among other things, of doing the right thing, but also of highlighting that we do make our own decisions, and we are a country that, that will make its choices around how we support countries around the world in their path towards better prosperity and better opportunities for people. There's still a lot of work to be done in Cuba. In regards to your question on Venezuela, I would propose to you, sir, that anyone who contends to be a friend of Venezuela, whether it's Cuba or Canada or an individual, anyone who contends that they are a friend to the Venezuelan people should be very clear in standing up and condemning the Maduro government that has been responsible for terrible oppression, for terrible marginalization, for a humanitarian crisis the likes of which South America has not seen in a long time, leading to mass exodus, tremendous a number of refugees fleeing all across South America, all because of an illegitimate dictator named Maduro, who is continuing to not respect their constitution, the rule of law, and the principles of what is true and fair for the future. Sorry, sir, I disagree. The Venezuelan people will probably significantly disagree with you as well, because they are suffering and they need true democracy. But thank you for your question, sir. You, sir, in the red t-shirt. Yes, standing up. Yes.
Mr. Prime Minister, on the 7th of November, you issued an apology to the Jews of the world and to the world for Canada's role in returning over 900 Jews to many of whom were finally murdered in the Holocaust. I thank you very much for issuing that apology. However, at the same time, you gave the impression, I believe, to my consternation, that you equated the BDS movement with anti-Semitism. For those who may want to know what BDS stands for, it stands for the International Campaign to Boycott, Divest, and Sanction against the Israeli government policies in Palestine. 236 Canadian academics, and you are now in the top academic institution of our region, requested you to retract that condemnation. Those academics represent thousands of voters like myself and thousands of people all over the world, including thousands of Jews and Jewish organizations. Will you take this opportunity today to retract your condemnation of the BDS movement?
Thank you, sir, for your question. I very much appreciate your thanks for the apology and your understanding of how it was necessary. Anti-Semitism as it existed back then was commonplace and simply accepted, and we fortunately moved on from there. But anti-Semitism still exists, and indeed, discrimination against Jewish people is still one of the largest sources of hate crimes in Canada and around the world. We need to understand as well that anti-Semitism has also manifested itself not just as in targeting of individuals, but it is also targeting a new condemnation or an anti-Semitism against the very state of Israel, which, as my friend Erwin Kotler has characterized, can be characterized by the 3 Ds. Demonization of Israel, a double standard around Israel, and a delegitimization of the state of Israel. And I think we have to be very careful as a society and as a government and as a country to not sanction or support this new frame around anti-Semitism and undue criticism of Israel. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't criticize decisions by the state of Israel. That, of course, it's a democratic country that has an opposition party that every day has as its job criticisms of decisions that the government of Israel makes. And that's perfectly natural and healthy and needed within a democracy. But when you have movements like BDS that singles out Israel, that seeks to delegitimize and in some cases demonize, when you have students on campus dealing with things like Israel Apartheid Weeks that makes them fearful of actually attending campus events because of their religion in Canada, we have to recognize that there are things that aren't acceptable, not because of foreign policy concerns, but because of Canadian values. It's not right to discriminate or to make someone feel unsafe on campus because of their religion. And unfortunately, the BDS movement is often linked to those kinds of frames. So yes, sir, I will continue to condemn the BDS movement. I fully respect and appreciate the fact that people have a broad range of opinions on a very delicate question of the Middle East, but Canada's position is that we need a two-state solution that will be negotiated directly by Israel and the Palestinian people, and that unilateral actions, whether it be settlements or unilateral declarations of statehood, are not helpful in that path. And we, as a country, need to support that path towards a true two-state solution consistent with the values that we share as citizens of the world. Thank you, sir. You in blue. Yes. The mic's coming to you there. Just pass it on like a hot dog there.
Thank you for being here today, Mr. Prime Minister. My name is Patrick Novak. I'm from the city of Mississauga, Ontario. And I'd like to ask you, why do you think that legalizing and marketing a dangerous drug like cannabis will help...
Oh, shut, hey. Yeah, you're in a university crowd. This might be a tough crowd, but guys, we're going to be respectful of opinions and questions asked. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Why legalizing and marketing a dangerous drug like cannabis will help prevent it from getting into the hands of children. Because to me, it sounds like that you're willing to let the health and safety of Canadians take a backseat to being able to make tax money off of dirty and illegal drug money. And to me, that just doesn't sound right.
Okay, no, listen. Thank you for your question. And that actually is an opinion that I've heard, and a legitimate question I've had asked to me directly over the years since I came forward with the commitment to legalize and regulate the sale of marijuana. And fundamentally, my approach on this, and let me be very clear, it's not about a new source of revenue for the government. It may end up happening, but that's not what it's all about. It's a reflection of a failure of public policy. The prohibition we have had on cannabis in Canada over the past many, many decades did not work to protect our kids and to protect our communities. It was well known in just about any high school you would choose to go to over the past decade which kid you could go to get marijuana. There's a lot of folks who were in high school recently. Put up your hand if you felt when you were 15 or so that it was easier to get your hands on a joint than it was to get your hands on a bottle of beer. Okay, that right there, thank you very much, is a failure of public policy. It should not be easier, as you say, to get your hands on a drug like marijuana than it is to get your hands on a bottle of beer. Now, there's actually a lot of interesting studies that show that the death rate from alcohol every year far exceeds that of marijuana, but that's, no. That is also not why we legalized it. We legalized it because the current system was not making it more difficult for young people to buy marijuana. And we figured that if we at least treat it like alcohol, meaning if you want to buy marijuana for your personal consumption, you're going to have to go to an official store and show ID
that demonstrates that you are 18 or 19, whatever the age of majority is in your province. That would not prevent 100% of younger people from getting their hands on it, but it would make it slightly more difficult. And indeed, that is what it is doing. Now, we are in challenges of implementation right now because going from zero legal market to having a legal market meant there is needed time to catch up on supplies and consumer demands and what actually is out there. But that is a transition time that is underway. But every single dollar someone spends on legal marijuana is a dollar not going into the pockets of organized crime. Now, I understand, sir, what you were saying about taking the money into the coffers of the government. But before we legalized, about $6 billion every year was going into the pockets of organized crime, of street gangs and gun runners. That is not something we want to continue as a country. That would also represent a failure of public policy. And on top of that, if someone is going to make a choice around using marijuana, would we rather they use something that was certified by Health Canada, or would we want them buying something off the street that nobody knows what went into it or what it could be laced by? For all these reasons, there are choices that you can do around that too, for personal consumption only. This is why we made a choice based on sound public policy decisions that legalizing and controlling this substance was the best way to protect our young people, to protect our communities, and to get the profits out of the pockets of organized crime. Thank you very much for your question, sir. You, the young man in the green, in the back. Sorry, behind you.
Hello, my name is Mustafa.
Hello, Mustafa.
I have a question for you. What is the Canadian government doing to mitigate the Alberta oil sand pollution?
Excellent question. Thank you, Mustafa, for your concern about the environment and for your desire to see us have a cleaner world. That is certainly something that I share, that I think we all share, and it may surprise you, but folks in Alberta share very much as well. The innovation and the investments that have been made over the past years in making the oil sands more efficient, cleaner, have been significant. One of the things that was put forward as one of the elements that was put forward in Alberta's recent climate plan was actually an absolute cap on oil sands emissions, so that we actually can know that we will be able to reach our Paris targets, even as we continue for a while for the foreseeable future to develop our oil sands. Now, we will continue to look at developing them in cleaner, more responsible ways. We will also look at ways of transporting them to market in better and more reliable ways. Right now, we've seen an incredible increase in the number of oil by rail cars that have been transported. And we can all know that transporting oil by rail is both more polluting and more dangerous than through modern, safer pipelines. But at the same time, I understand people are concerned about pipelines. And that is why we're making sure that as we move forward on building a pipeline to new markets, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion, we're doing it responsibly by working with Indigenous peoples, by allowing for consultations, by trying to do the best environmental science we can. Now, there are plenty of challenges around this that continue, but what we are facing right now is actually a discount of tens of billions of dollars on the price that we get of oil, and that's money that we could be investing in schools, in hospitals, in better technology, and in a cleaner future. So we are working to reduce pollution from the oil sands while we continue to be dependent on oil, but we're looking to create the kinds of solutions we need next. Thank you very much for your question, Mustafa. Thank you for your concern. Young woman, you in the white. Yes.
Hi, Mr. Prime Minister. My name is Olivia. I'm actually a student here at Brock studying biotechnology. I'm in my 3rd year. So with that, my question is most likely going to be directed towards something within my field. So my question for you is, as we approach a new era in the field of biotechnology, what are the government's plans to provide information on certain misconceptions of advancements in science, such as vaccinations and genetic modifications?
Oh, great question. I think any time we look at new technologies, at creations of new solutions, of new ways of doing things, people are worried. People want to know that they're going to be safe, that how they're going to protect their kids is safe, how they're going to feed their kids is safe, and that preoccupation needs to be at the center of the science and the responsibility that a government has to reassure citizens. And to give them the right information that they can make the right choices for their families. And that is something that I take very seriously and that we as a government take very seriously. That's why we appointed a national science advisor to help advise the government on how we are, not just advise them on science, but how we are empowering and engaging the scientific community to ground our decisions based on science. It's how we're pushing scientific literacy around the country to make sure that people actually can understand the science, whether it's around vaccinations, and yes, I got my flu shot, and I think it's really important that all parents know that we need to get flu shots for our kids. But yes, no, I'll allow a moment for applause on that one, because it's really important. But we have to move forward understanding that there are misconceptions and preconceptions out there that we have to counter with thoughtful, reasoned discourse, with education, with science, and with pedagogy. And that's exactly how we need to rely on scientists like you are, and you will be, Olivia, to continue to share the way we move forward in a thoughtful way and have people understand that progress comes with responsibilities, and we are serious about assuming those responsibilities. Thank you. Another question. You, sir, in black.
Thank you, Mr. Trudeau, for being here. My name is Akash Rupert. I'm a 3rd-year political science student. My question is that do you think cyber terrorism is an aspect Canada is equipped to deal with, knowing the danger it poses to critical infrastructure and as well the population?
Oh, that's a great question. One of the fundamental responsibilities of any government is to keep its citizens safe. And obviously that means making sure we have police forces that keep our streets safe, but increasingly we are vulnerable through the level of reliance we have on online and electronic infrastructure, whether it's communications, personal or professional, whether it's industries, whether it's banking, whether it's our financial data. These are the things we need to continue to focus on. These are the things that we need to make sure Canadians are safe in our investments. That's why the CSE, the Communications Security Establishment in Canada, is actually one of the top cybersecurity, national security agencies in the world. It's not particularly well known, but you can be reassured that Canada's cyber and communications experts are among the top in the world. No big surprise, Canada has an overabundance of brilliant mathematicians and keen young computer scientists and thinkers, and we have managed to create particularly with the strong grounding in the rule of law and our partnerships with like-minded countries around the world, an extremely strong center for cybersecurity in this country. There's lots more to do, and there's also much more to do, not just from a government perspective, but from an empowering of citizens perspective. A greater knowledge by businesses and organizations on how to keep themselves safe in terms of cybersecurity. We're constantly iterating. The challenges themselves are constantly iterating as well. But you can know that cybersecurity is an area where Canadians will continue to excel on the global stage and in how we protect ourselves. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. You, right in the middle. Yes. Mic coming right there.
Hi, my name is Andrea Jacobs, and I'm a student here at Brock University. This is more of a personal question. I'm wondering how you and your family deal with the constant criticism on social media, as you are like one of the only prime ministers who's led during a time of social media, and how there's no escape for it really when you have it at home all the time.
Thank you for your question. I try not to spend too much time personally on many of the social media pages that are out there. I look for ways to have direct conversations with Canadians like this. I make phone calls almost every week with regular people to try and hear what they're talking about. So I have ways of connecting that don't require to be in some of the social media worlds that so many of us live in and see a level of toxicity to. But it is a concern to me, obviously, for our democracy in general, but it's also a concern, quite frankly, for my kids. One of the things I said on the night I became Prime Minister back in 2015 was that I was thinking of my kids, and I was promising that I would be there to help them as they figured out how to be children of a Prime Minister. And I pointed out that I had a little bit of experience in that way that I hope to be able to support them with and support them through. But what I didn't have as a kid was to deal with Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or all the various ways that messages now fill the lives of anyone who has access to a screen, which is pretty much anyone older than 5 years old. So I'm trying to raise them in a way that has them understand that real conversations and real engagement is separate from what you see online, and that there's an amplification and an anonymity online that doesn't often lead itself to genuine interactions and genuine conversations. The other thing that I hope for my kids is that they go through an experience that I had, which wasn't always easy. The fact that I had people come up to me in the schoolyard or wherever throughout my life and tell me on first meeting me that they didn't like me. I'm like, what have I ever done to you? No, I don't like you. And sometimes they would articulate it, because I didn't like your father. And I had to deal with people who would criticize me automatically because they didn't like my father and therefore felt that they had a right to make that decision about me. Of course, I also had to deal with the flip side, which was I had people come up to me and because they loved my father, thought I was just fantastic. And that wasn't based on it knowing me to any degree greater than the person who didn't like me for those reasons. So I was able to develop a sense of self that was sort of separate from people's perceptions of me, because there were so many external perceptions of me. And what I hope for my kids is to be able to, and what I hope for all of us, is to be able to separate the external perceptions, whether they're based on what your parents did or what you look like or how you choose to dress or whatever, from who the actual person is. And the capacity to be comfortable in your own skin, to be who you are, and be confident enough to project that and stand against what people who don't actually know you might think of you, I think is something that I certainly hope to pass on to my kids, and I certainly hope and do see more and more amongst a generation that's learning that any criticism directed your way might not actually get to define you. Nobody gets to define you except yourself, and the more we remember that, the better off we'll be. Thank you very much. Question in the back. You in the blue shirt.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for being here. My name is Matt Campbell. I'm a Brock alumni. I wanted to ask you about two things. government priorities that have been talked about but aren't really rolled out yet. So I was wondering, it's about universal pharmacare and guaranteed annual income. I was just wondering at what phase you're in having those conversations with Canadians and implementing a policy about that.
Listen, great questions, both of them, Matt. Thank you. Pharmacare is something that has been talked about almost as long as we've had a healthcare system, Medicare, in Canada. It was always seen as that important next piece of healthcare. We know that prescription drug costs for seniors right across the country, for young people. I know Ontario has made some significant steps on that, but we need to do a better job of making sure that vulnerable people don't have to choose between paying their rent, eating, or treating their ailments or illnesses. That's why we have actually, recognizing that there's a broad range of approaches across the country, a broad range of different challenges, a mishmash of public-private coverage plans. We have tasked a group of experts led by Dr. Eric Hoskins, former health minister here in Ontario, to really analyze what is the state of pharmacare in this country, what is needed to ensure that all Canadians can afford the medication they need to keep themselves healthy, and indeed we as a society need to make sure that Canadians are healthy. And that is something that we're hoping to see the report back this spring, and we'll obviously have more to say on as soon as that comes back. Because relying on experts who actually know what they're talking about is something that this government tries to do in every situation. The second question, the second issue was, sorry, just totally blanked on it. It was, yeah, guaranteed annual income. Our current Minister of Families, Jean-Yves Duclos, is actually an economist from Université Laval in Quebec. Oh, and by the way, we have simultaneous translation here, so if anyone wants to ask a question in French, I will be more than happy to answer in French. On défend toujours les deux langues officielles ici au Canada. Merci pour ça. Et c'est notre responsabilité au fédéral et on surveille ça. Jean-Yves Duclos actually is an academic who spent a significant part of his economic work, his work as an economist, looking at things like a guaranteed annual income. And that's why one of the significant moves we made when we first got elected, and a promise we made, was around a Canada Child Benefit, because we knew that giving more money every month, tax-free, to families with the high cost of raising their kids was going to make a huge difference, particularly in low-income families. And we've seen massive positive impacts on that. That's $6,400 a year for a low-income family with a kid under 6, $5,400 a year for kids over 6. And as of this past summer, because it was working so well to lift hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty and make life better for so many middle-class families across the country, we indexed it to inflation 2 years ahead of schedule, because we know that that's going to make a big difference. Now, that is not a guaranteed income supplement, sorry, a guaranteed annual income, but it is a significant step towards that kinds of things. There was a guaranteed annual income pilot that the previous Ontario government took on that was unfortunately cancelled by the current Ontario government, but I certainly know that we're very interested in seeing the results of various experiments and issues like that around the country. There are a lot of things around affordability that can make a difference, whether it's raising minimum wage, whether it's looking at things like guaranteed annual incomes, whether it's the Canada Child Benefit, or even what we've moving forward with this year, which is a Canada Workers Benefit, which is designed to give a top-up to low-income workers to encourage them to stay in the workforce, to make it less of a choice to say, well, I could stay home and just collect social assistance and make almost as much money as if I have to work hard at a job. Well, we want to make having a job that much more supportive. That's what the Canada Workers Benefit is all about. So there's a number of different things we're looking at, but we're not looking directly at a guaranteed annual income at the federal level at this point. Thank you for your question. Next question. Yes, my friend. The Ticats fan, yes.
Hey, Justin, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
My question is, did you get to do anything fun over the holidays? And do you think the Maple Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Oh, you don't ask a Habs fan about the Leafs. Listen, the Toronto Maple Leafs have a hell of a team this year. I will admit that. Montreal, I think, is in a bit of a rebuilding year, although we haven't done too bad this year so far. This Christmas, I've spent time with my family. It's going to be a big year. My kids deal with me working very hard, as so many families do. Parents have to work really hard, even though we all want to be more present in the lives of our kids. And I got to take about 10 days really to try and be, there were a few emergency phone calls in there because that's the job. But most of the time I got to spend just great times with my kids and actually helped make my 4.5-year-old Hadrian a really, really solid little skier. I'm very, very happy that he's coming right along on that. But thank you for your question. Yes, you in the front row.
Thank you. Let me just start with saying that this is a big honor to be here in front of you. Thank you and all the Niagara representatives for the program and services that you offer to immigrant families like mine. We are a Colombian family who arrived to Canada 10 years ago, looking for a better opportunity and working hard to build a better tomorrow. But we had an issue, and that not only takes over our family, but to the whole community, because we have been around asking for help. This is related to my brother, who is still back in Colombia. My brother was a victim of the violence in Colombia in 2006. As a result, he is a disabled person now and is in a wheelchair. So we have been trying everything for him to come to Canada, but nothing seems to be worked. We have been in multiculturals, lawyers, counselors, but his condition and his case seems to be really complex. So we are here today to ask for some help, because you are our best resource, and we know that, the people who are here feel freedom. And from the bottom of our hearts, we suffer. My mother suffers, because we are not complete, and we want to be a family like how we used to be. So my question is, could you please help us or guide or direct us to the right way so we can obtain the visa for him? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your courage, and thank you for keeping your faith that Canada is a country that gives opportunities to people to come and build better lives for themselves, for their families, and by extension, build stronger communities for all of us and a stronger future for us all. That is something we have lived over generations in this country, of people coming, building better lives for themselves, and that's certainly something we will continue to do. On your specific case, we have two MPs here, Chris Biddle and Vance Badaway. Whichever one's office is closer to you will take up your file, look into it very carefully, and follow up with you on that, because that's one of the things that MPs are great for, is following up on specific files of constituents. So thank you very much. Okay, another question. You, sir. Yes.
Ani Nanabuju, Prime Minister Trudeau, Wayakata Makwa, Ndishnakas, Makwa Wawashkashi, Dodem Nindaao, Nishnabe, Nehiao, Métis, Dene Ndunjaba. Auch meine Vorfahren stammen aus Deutschland und der Schweiz. My English name is Matthew of the Bear Clan. Further back, dear clan, my Anishinaabe, Cree, Métis, Dene ancestry on Turtle Island. I'm also of German and Swiss heritage. Hello, Prime Minister Trudeau. Chi Miigwech, thank you for being here today and listening to our thoughts and feelings with a clear mind and an open heart. I'm a graduate student at Mohawk College studying advanced security management. Prime Minister Trudeau, you've often mentioned that the most important relationship in Canada is the one with Indigenous peoples. Yet you have allowed forcible removal of Wet'suwet'en First Nation people from their land. In 2018, Canada finally adopted Bill 262 in the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. Would you please explain in relatable, truthful language why you are allowing this to occur in direct contravention of Article 10, where you are forcibly removing an Indigenous people from their land?
Thank you. Thank you for introducing yourself in your language. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for your passion in making sure that we are truly on the right reconciliation journey. We are working very hard to build a new path with Indigenous peoples in this country. For centuries, for generations, as a government, we failed to live up to the spirit and intent of the original treaties, which were all about welcoming settlers onto this land and sharing the bounty of Turtle Island, but not relinquishing the stewardship of this land that had been there for millennia. But Canada as a country failed to live up to that partnership. Failed in direct ways with things like residential schools, with legal systems that marginalized and criminalized Indigenous peoples for behaviors that they had done and ways that they had lived for time immemorial. We heard loudly and clearly from Canadians and felt it ourselves in 2015 that it was time to bring about a renewal, time to walk the path of true reconciliation. And we are endeavoring to do just that. But it is not easy. It is very difficult because if you think about it, 100 years ago, when a railroad was laid across this country, nobody checked with the local residents whether this was a good idea or this was something they would support. The government used to have the capacity to just decide when and where and what it wanted to do at any given time. We have now understood that that is wrong. And more than that, that is not the way to continue to build a country and develop our natural resources and share in the bounty of those natural resources. And Canada will, for all our investments and leadership on AI and robotics and the knowledge economy, will always be a country with tremendous natural resources and be lucky because of it. But we need to make sure we are sharing the opportunities, the benefits, and the responsibility for making decisions with the people who've lived on this land for millennia. And that is why, over the past 3 years, we have embarked on two different approaches, two different levels of engaging with Indigenous peoples. One is on the Crown-Indigenous relationship. It is looking at treaties and self-government and empowering and settling long-standing land claims and moving forward to get more and more communities out from under the colonialist relic that is the Indian Act. And that is something that we are on as a path. And on the other side, we are working on delivering in an immediate way on the kinds of opportunities and services that, quite frankly, Indigenous peoples have been not delivered as they should have been, as any other Canadian should have been, for too long. We're talking about boil water advisories ending. We've ended 72 of them and are on track to eliminating all of them on schedule within the next 2 years. We're talking about delivering in new schools and new housing, and not just new schools, but new school boards that will be Indigenous-driven, Indigenous-run. New health centers, deeply informed with traditional Indigenous knowledge, in partnership and directed by the Indigenous communities themselves.
And there have been tremendous positive developments over the course of the past 3 years. And you can look around the country and hear stories and see examples of great positive developments. But there are also continued challenges where Canada hasn't done enough yet, where there is still much more work to do. And the situation with the Wet'suwet'en is an unfortunate example of that, where we didn't do well enough. Where even though there were elected chiefs along that particular pipeline who were in support of that pipeline, there were hereditary chiefs that were not. And the job we have to do of listening to everyone and recognizing the input and the legitimacy of a broad range of rights holders, title holders, and voices in questions like this is not something we've perfectly figured out how to do yet. It's something we're learning from every day, and unfortunately the Wet'suwet'en is a situation that we are going to be learning some lessons from, because it was not handled the way it could have been or should have been or would be hopefully 10 years from now if the same issue were to come up. I'm not going to say anything other than there is still going to be turbulence as we figure out how to be fully respectful and thoughtful in our approach to the people who've lived here for millennia. We have much more work to do. The UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is something that we support and endorse and are working to implement fully as a matter of law. In 1982, the Canadian Constitution recognized Indigenous rights in Section 35 of the Constitution. There is no reason that Indigenous peoples should continue to have to go to the courts to demonstrate that they have rights because we put them in the Constitution in 1982. We need to go from a place of denial of rights to recognition of rights. And that is very much what our government is working on. But as you so eloquently pointed out, we still have much work to do. We have many more steps to take on this journey, and I will continue to walk hand in hand with you and with all who so desire, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to build this better future together. Masi Cho, thank you very much for your question. Next question. You, ma'am. Yes. No, sorry, ma'am. We have a question right here. Sorry. Ma'am, the way this works is I just asked ma'am to have a question, and we're going to ask you the question. Please bring her the mic. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry. Ma'am, I have given this woman the right. Please show respect for her. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm sorry I didn't get to your question, ma'am. You can send me a... Thank you.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry for the delay.
No, that's quite all right.
No, it's not. Okay, just use your camera. Okay, thank you very much. This is a slightly different kind of question. To me, very important. I have horses. I consider myself part of the equine industry, which is actually a $15 to $20 billion industry here in Canada. I am opposed. I'm an industry member, and there are many of us who are opposed to the slaughter of horses for human consumption. In 2014, you voted in favor of Bill C-571 to stop the slaughter of horses for human consumption. If another bill like C-571 is introduced, will you support it? Before you answer, please keep in mind that in addition to all the very sound reasons why we shouldn't be slaughtering horses, your answer has the potential to break the heart of every little girl in Canada who loves horses.
Thank you for your question. I will be very careful about my answer then. We are a country that tries to do the right thing in all things. We try to be responsible about how we treat others. We try to be humane about how we treat animals and livestock. We try to be responsible about the environment. We try to treat our neighbors with respect. We try to do the right kinds of things. And that's something that really matters for Canadians. There are always going to be challenges on that. There are folks who choose to be vegetarians or vegans because it's either good for their health, because they choose it's good for their health, because it's good for the environment, because it's a moral choice they make, and there are others who choose not to. And as a government and as a country, we have to be respectful of all those points of view and try to ensure that we're moving forward in a way that is the best possible way for the country. Now, I deeply understand where you come from and your passion for horses, for the equine industry. I also understand that anytime we talk about animal welfare and animal rights, we have to be very mindful of farmers and ranchers across this country who make a living providing and putting food on most of our tables. And getting that balance right is not as easy as black or white. It's a process of engaged, thoughtful conversations and compromises and issues that we can bring forward and issues that we can make significant movements on. And that's the nature of government. Anytime we make a big decision, there are going to be people in agreement and there are going to be people in disagreement. And I think the measure of how we do as a country and as a society is if we can understand that even with a range of views, we should be moving together in ways that bring together and try to reconcile those views. So when a bill comes forward around humane treatment of animals, I'm always going to ask, okay, tell me about the work that was done with the agricultural industry to make sure that you're listening to their concerns while you express your own concerns. And I know that it is possible on big issues that are very passionately felt to still find respectful compromises that actually achieve goals that are, if not great for everyone, at least not terrible for everyone. And that is how a diverse society with a broad range of views moves forward. And I look forward to hearing from a broad range of views on that issue and on other issues as we choose to legislate in ways that keeps Canada moving in the right direction. Thank you for that question. Let's go to the very, very back there. How about you in the jean jacket? Yes, stand up. There we go.
Hello, Mr. Trudeau. Thank you for being here. My name is Emily Reynolds, and I'm a recent Brock graduate, and I'm now teaching high school history in Hamilton. We often teach history with snapshots of significant events and the legacies of great Canadians. For example, the legacy I often teach for your father is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In 20 years, what would you like young Canadians to learn about your time as Prime Minister? In other words, what would you like your legacy to be?
I think, I'm a very different politician from my father. My father was very much an academic, where I'm a little more like you, a school teacher. I come at the legacy that I think we're all trying to build together around this democracy with an understanding of the importance of process. And I think if my legacy is linked to actually empowering citizens to feel connected and responsible for the direction of our country, for not waiting for the right single leader who's going to transform everything with things like bilingualism and the Charter of Rights and Freedom and multiculturalism, but understand that we are all
every single one of us empowered through this modern society to be active, engaged citizens that are agents of change in our own communities and in our country and in our world, if my legacy has to do with empowerment of individual, thoughtful voices as citizens shaping a better world, then I think we're on the right track. But your question about 1982, and your mention of 1982, does make me think of one specific moment, because I was there as a 12-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid, in April of 1982, when my father and the Queen signed the Constitution on the drizzly day in Ottawa, and I didn't really understand what was going on at that age, but I did understand that it was a momentous moment. And as I live and breathe the Charter every day, certainly as Prime Minister, I think back often to that day. And there was a moment a couple of years ago where I was heading into work on a morning in November, and at the last minute on a whim, I said, actually, you know what, Sophie? I want to bring Xavier and Ella, my two elder kids, into work with me today. I want them to be in the House today. And they sat in the House of Commons while I delivered an apology for the way Canada and Canada's various agencies had systemically and deliberately violated the rights of LGBT people in this country. Because I wanted them to see what recognition of rights means, what taking responsibility for past errors meant, and I wanted them to see part of the country that we're trying to build that is fairer, that respects people's rights, and that understands that protecting individual rights is the cornerstone of how we build a better future for us all. And that was a moment that I was happy to share with my kids, the way my dad shared the Constitution with me. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So how about you and the toque there? Yeah, right in the middle. Yeah, the gray toque. Stand up. There you go. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. First
Sorry. Oh. Where was the toque? No, yeah, you're standing there. Where's the mic? Bring the mic over to her and the toque.
Me?
Sorry, yeah, no, I didn't even see the other girl. Where's the other girl?
Sorry.
Oh, right in the very back. Okay, you'll get the question afterwards. Sorry. We'll do the front and then we'll do the back. Okay.
Hi, Mr. Trudeau. My name is Gabrielle LaHaye. I'm a student here at Brock. Last semester, I took a class on politics of China, and we learned that they're becoming more involved in the international market, especially trade with Canada, and we learned about the ports and that we're in negotiation of selling off our Arctic ports. Can Canada look forward to seeing that, or are we going to say, no, we're not going to sell off those ports?
Thank you very much for your question. Canada's sovereignty, particularly in the north, comes through the people who've lived there for millennia, in support of the Inuit and Indigenous peoples who've peopled our Arctic for tens of thousands of years. We are always willing, as we expand trade around the world, to draw in international investment, to build up infrastructure that's going to allow us to create good jobs and to get our resources to new markets, but we are not going to compromise our sovereignty as we do that. You can be reassured of that. Thank you. And the question from the back row. Yes. Yes. I wasn't going to characterize your hijab as a toque. Don't worry about that. No, sorry, the girl in the back row who is...
Sorry for that. Thank you.
No, you were directly lined up with the girl I was looking at with Gabrielle, so I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you. My question was actually about women's rights in the states of homelessness. So 1 in 7, at least I think that was the statistic, will experience homelessness in their lifetime. We live in a patriarchy. Oftentimes, most families that are living in poverty are headed by female. And one possible effort could be to perhaps introduce a kind of homemaking wage for women in order to kind of benefit and really fix their position and give them a better condition of life. Will we see a similar system in the future, perhaps?
Well, thank you for your question. There is no question that we cannot, as a society, as an economy, succeed fully if we continue to hold back half of our population. We need to make sure that we understand that defending women's rights and giving them full opportunities to succeed in every field and in every sphere is actually not just a matter of women's rights, it's a matter of human rights, and it's a matter of success for our entire society. As with many complex issues, though, there isn't any one simple answer. There are many things that we are doing as a government and that companies and individuals are doing all around the world and across the country to make significant differences in that. I talked earlier about the Canada Child Benefit. Well, that is making a significant difference in the opportunities for women to engage in the workforce because there is more support for their kids. We've invested $7 billion in furthering child care accords with the provinces to make sure that there's better child care. We move forward on an increase to the guaranteed income supplement for our most vulnerable single seniors who statistically turn out to be much more majoritarily women than men. Because women tend to live longer, and that has made a big difference in the outcomes for elderly women as well. We've also moved forward on second parent parental leave. Now, this is an idea that has worked in a number of places in Europe where we've actually, on top of the maternal parental leave that we've been given, which is fairly generous, we've added 5 weeks of use it or lose it second parent leave, in most cases the father. And that means if the father doesn't take those 5 weeks, then nobody gets those 5 weeks. So it's a strong incentive for the father to take time, or the second parent. What that allows for is, first of all, better engagement in the child-rearing responsibilities from the very beginning, learning how to properly change diapers and be there during the very early months and the very early year. But also, it means that when an employer is looking at two prospective young employees, a man and a woman, either one of them, if they start a family, would be taking time away from work. So it's not automatically a knock that, well, if you hire a woman, I have to think about the fact that I'm going to have maternity leave one day to deal with. No, if you're hiring a man, you're going to have to deal with paternity leave one day. And that better sharing of household responsibilities, of child-rearing responsibilities, is something that will go a long way towards reducing some of those barriers. We're also moving forward on historic pay equity legislation to make sure that for jobs of similar value, men and women get paid the similar amounts. These are the kinds of things that we are doing. There's lots more to do. There's lots more barriers. But as we identify these barriers, we are looking at many different ways of getting around them and making sure that women's equality is seen as not just a nice thing to do, but as a smart thing to do for our society. Thank you. And I think the last question of the night from this section here, you, sir, in the hat. Yes, right there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trudeau, for being here. My name is Don Foster. I want to thank you for freedom of religion in this country, and I ask you to always keep it that way.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Freedom of religion is guaranteed in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and I will always defend our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Thank you, sir, for that question. I guess because that was a quick one, I'll take another question from that section. You, ma'am, in the gray with the scarf. Yes.
My question's on my phone. Okay. Oh, I lost it. Where'd it go? Okay, I know what it is. My name's Emma. I'm a French immersion teacher in the Niagara region. My question is about our sexual assault laws in Canada. So our sexual assault laws are quite laughable here in Canada. I'm just gonna wait. We consistently see that sexual assault offenders see very little consequences when they sexually assault women. There are, for every 1,000 sexual assaults that are reported, usually only 3 are convicted and found guilty. And the average prison sentence is 2 years less a day, which is laughable. That's even if they're found guilty. In our current climate, where women are demanding progress and demanding change, I'm curious what our government is going to do to amend this flaw in the justice system.
Thank you very much for your question. We are seeing a real awakening going on, a real change in society that isn't happening overnight. It's been a long time coming. An awful lot of people have been impatient about this for a very, very long time. When I was back in university 25, 30 years ago, I was part of McGill Sexual Assault Center, the Sexual Assault Center of the McGill Student Society, because McGill didn't want to admit at the time that there was any problem with sexual assault. So they didn't want to have a sexual assault center. It had to be a student society doing it, and that still is the case. And it's astonishing and frustrating to me to see over the past 2 decades how little things have changed. But I truly believe we are seeing an awakening, a moment of the fact that what has always been shrugged off or accepted is now no longer acceptable. And workplaces are changing and behaviors are changing. And it's not just about the justice system. And yes, we're looking at changes in the justice system. We're moving forward. Hopefully, if some conservative senators in the Senate allow it to happen, we're going to move forward on a bill actually by a conservative politician, Rona Ambrose, to bring in mandatory training for judges so that there's better dealing with sexual assault cases in our courts. But there's also a change that we need to do. Every organization, every institution, organization, from religious organizations to political organizations to the Catholic Church, need to make sure that they are being accountable and changing not just the way they deal with these challenges, but the way they proactively take responsibility for them and engage with the kinds of transformations we need. It is wrong to make anyone feel belittled, unsafe, harassed, or assaulted in their place of work or life. And it is the responsibility not just of survivors and strong women to stand up and speak out for that. It is the responsibility of every single one of us to stand up, speak out, and say enough is enough. To be supportive, to be respectful, and to start from a place of belief and support when someone comes forward with a story of harassment or assault. There's still a long way we need to go, but I know through the strength, through the devotion, through the advocacy, through the courage of many extraordinary women and men across this country and around the world, we are on the right track. Thank you very much for your question. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Brock. It was an amazing pleasure to be with you all. Merci tout le monde. Thank you.